Welcome back to Library Trust YouTube channel. Today's class we'll be learning how to make this beautiful double flare sleeve attachment. Okay, it's a sleeve that runs from the center front area through the shoulder and to the back. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. This is something you would like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to start with, you need to take the measurements of where this flare is going to go around. Okay, so for me, I'm going to start around the center front area here, and then it's going to go through the bust and then up here through my shoulder, and then from my shoulder it's going to go all the way to the back, so it stops around here. So here I have 17 inches. So for you this may be different. You just need to measure where you want this flare to go through. So now I have my 17 inches. To cut out my flare, I'm going to divide 17 inches by 6.28. So 17 divided by 6.28 is giving me around 2.70 thereabouts. So for my radius, I'm going to increase that to 3 inches because I want to add some plates to it. So the next thing I'm going to do now, this is a 2-layer flare. So to cut the flare, I'm going to put my fabric on fold by 4. So this is into 2, and then I'm going to put it on fold into 4. Then I'm going to measure my radius of 3 inches. Okay, so now you need to decide how long you want it to be. So for me, for the first flare, I want it to be around 7 inches long. So I just want to see if my fabric will be long enough, which it is. So now my length that I want, which is 7 inches, the amount of fabric you will need for this is your radius, and the radius is gotten from by dividing your circumference. The circumference is where you are placing this flare by 6.28. In this case that gives me around 2.7, and I increased it to 3 inches because I want to plait it. So that's my radius. So now the length that I'm working with now is 7 inches. So if you're working with a length of 7 inches, you need to add that to your radius. So 7 plus 3 is going to give me 10 inches. So that is what I'm going to use to fold my fabric. So now you first fold it into 2 like this, and you must make sure that after folding it you have your 10 inches or more. Then after folding, fold again into 4, and when you fold it, you make sure you have that 10 inches. Okay, if it's not up to 10 inches, it's going to give you shortage, and I don't want to be joining it. So now I have my fabric folded. The next thing is to mark out my radius. So the radius of 3 inches from the origin here, I'm marking 3 inches round. 3 inches, and then I'm going to connect it. I hope this is feasible. Okay, so now I'm marking 3 inches round, and I'm going to connect it. So from there now I'll mark my length. As I said, I'm working with a length of 7 inches, but I have up to 8 inches, so I'm just going to leave it at that, and the 1 inch is going to serve as my allowance. So I'm marking 8 inches round from my radius. I'm marking my 8 inches round, and then I'm going to connect that also. Sorry, my chalk is yellow, so it may not show very well, but we've been doing this on the channel already, so I'm sure we have an idea of how to do this. So after doing this now, I'm going to cut this out. I'm cutting out the length, and now I'm cutting out the radius. So for the second flare, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to be using the same radius, but the length is going to differ. Okay, so the length will be shorter than the front, so I can just make it 4 inches or 5 inches depending on how long you want it. So for me, I'll just be working with a length of around 4.5 inches. So if I add 4.5 inches to my radius, which is 3 inches, that's 7.5. So it means I'll be folding my fabric with 7.5 inches. Okay, So to fold this now, I just take this fabric now and measure 7.5 inches, and then I'm going to fold. So here, from here now, I measure 7.5 inches. I can add allowance and measure 8. So once I have my 8 inches, I will fold on that point. Okay, so after folding on that point, I'm going to measure that 8 inches again, and from there now I'm going to fold into 4. Then after folding it into 4 like this, I'll measure my radius and then measure my 8 inches full length. So the length is for 4.5 inches. So I've marked out my radius and this is my length. So I'm cutting it out now. So after cutting it out, I'm going to be opening it up on one side. So you can actually leave it as it is like this, or you can shape the outer edge, which is what I'm doing. So I've opened it up like this, and what I was saying is you can actually leave it like this, or you can just curve it, which is what I'll be doing. I don't want it to just be lying around like this. So on the edge, after putting it on fold now, I'm just going to curve it and then make sure it is smooth. So I'm going to try to smoothen it out from here, and then I'll blend it with the rest of the circle. So you can see what I have now is no longer sharp straight, it's now curved. So what I've done here now, I'm going to do to the light long one also. So from here now, I'm just going to try to curve it out like this. Okay, so now placing them on each other, I'm going to have something like this. So the next thing I'll need to do now is to weave the edge. So you can either weave the edge or use a bias to turn it. So you can see what I have here. So now you go ahead now and weave the edge of the flare, or you turn it with a bias. So after doing that now, to turn the upper part of this flare, you're going to turn this upper part, you're going to place the lower part underneath it like this, so the right side facing up, and then I'm going to be placing the wrong side of the big part on top of it. So after placing them on top of each other, now you match it together, and then you're going to sew on it. So after sewing on it, I'm going to turn it out like this. You can see that it is neatly turned, and then top stitch on it. So what I need to do now is to place the wrong side of my big flare on the right side of my small flare. Then I'm going to sew it on the upper part. Then after sewing it on the upper part, I'm just going to flip it like this and then top stitch on it. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it down now. You can see what I have. So the next thing now is for me to flip it over like this, and then I'm going to top stitch on it. So this is actually not important. You can use your hemming gum to glue it together, but I'm just going to top stitch. Okay, so I've gone ahead to top stitch this, but as I was top stitching it, I also pleated it. Remember, my actual radius was 2.7 inches, and then I increased this to 3 inches, so it will of course be wider than the 17 inches that I need to use. So now I pleated this as I was top stitching. I was pleating it, so I pleated this back to my actual 17 inches. So now if I take my tape measure around this, I will have exactly 17 inches, as you can see. Okay, so now this is what I have. The next thing now is to attach this to my tube. Okay, so this is a tube blouse that I already have drafted. Okay, so I just sew it around. So if you're going to be working with this for your clients, you must have turned this neatly with lining. The upper part, the hem, everything, the inside must be neat. So after turning it with lining, the next thing is to bring in your flare. So now the same way we measured, the same measurements we took when we were drafting this. Remember, we took the measurement from the center front area. So from that point now, I'll start placing that. Remember that you must have finished this edge with a bias or a serger, as the case may be. Just make sure the edge is neat. So now I'm going to place it from the center fold here, and then I'm going to pin it down. Okay, so after pinning it down, I'll go ahead and sew it. So now I'm pinning it. You can do this on your mannequin, okay, so that it will be easy for you. So I'm just going to pin it to the area where I'm going to be having my shoulder mark, and then from there I'm going to take it up and then take it all the way to the back. So now the tip is what I'm going to be sewing to the back like this. Okay, so you may decide to just sew it like this so that it can be turned like this, or you just place it on it. Remember, it's already neatly finished, so you're not going to be seeing all these rough edges. You just place it like this now, and then you sew. So when you sew it, you're going to be having something like this. So now I'm going to take this to the machine. Okay, so when you sew it, you have something like this on one side, and you can do this on both sides depending on what you want. So I'll take this to the machine now and sew and bring it back to show us. Okay, so I've sewn this down now. You should use a matching color of thread so that it's not going to be showing like this. And this is the shoulder area, as you can see, and this is it on the back. So I just stopped my sewing from the dart line, and then from the dart line I took it to the shoulder, and then take it back to where your dart is going to be at the back. So this is what I have now, and I forgot to mention that when you're taking this measurement, you should take it firm because you don't want the sleeves to be falling off your shoulder. So I'm going to take this to the mannequin now so that we can see what this looks like. So this is what the blouse is looking like on the mannequin. You can see that it comes from the center front here all the way to the shoulder and then to the back. Okay, so this is the back. It can be as long as you want, and the flares can also be as long as you want. It's totally up. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel. I can even add the sleeve to the other side also, if that is what you want. You can also make this with a shoulder and also add a sleeve to this side, so you can just do it anyhow you want. This is totally optional. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.